Anthony Kapel Van Jones is an American environmental advocate, civil rights activist, and attorney. He is a co-founder of 4 non-profit organizations including Rebuild the Dream, of which he is president. In 1996, he founded the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, a California non-governmental organization working for alternatives to violence. In 2005, he co-founded Color of Change, an advocacy group for African Americans. In 2007, he founded Green for All, a national NGO dedicated to building an inclusive green economy strong enough to lift people out of poverty. In 2011, he founded Rebuild the Dream, a national advocacy organization working towards a fairer economy. His first book, The Green Collar Economy, was released on October 7, 2008. It won the Nautilus Book Award and reached number 12 on the New York Times bestseller list. In 2008, Time magazine named Jones one of its heroes of the environment. Fast Company called him one of the 12 most creative minds of 2008. In March 2009, Jones was appointed by President Barack Obama to the newly created position of Special Advisor for Green Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation at the White House Council on Environmental Quality, where he worked with various agencies and departments to advance the administration's climate and energy initiatives, with a special focus on improving vulnerable communities. In July 2009 he became embroiled in a controversy over his past political activities, including a public comment disparaging congressional Republicans, his name appearing on a petition for 911truth.org, and one-time involvement with the Socialist Collective during the 1990s. For these issues, Van Jones was heavily criticized by conservatives. Jones resigned from the position in early September 2009. On the eve of historic fights for healthcare and clean energy, opponents of reform have mounted a vicious smear campaign against me, Jones said in his resignation statement. They are using lies and distortions to distract and divide. Jones is currently a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress and a senior policy advisor at Green for All. Jones also holds a joint appointment at Princeton University, as a distinguished visiting fellow in both the Center for African American Studies and in the program in Science, Technology and Environmental Policy at the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs. Early life: Jones and his twin sister Angela were born in 1968 in Jackson, Tennessee. Their mother was a teacher at a high school and their father was a principal at a junior high school. Jones' sister said that as a child he was the stereotypical joker. He just kind of lived up in his head a lot. He has described his own childhood behavior as bookish and bizarre. His grandfather was the senior bishop in the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, and Jones sometimes accompanied his grandfather to religious conferences, where he would sit all day listening to the adults in these hot, sweaty black churches. Jones was a young fan of John and Bobby Kennedy, and would pin photographs of them to a bulletin board in his room in the specially delineated Kennedy section. As a child he paired his Star Wars action figures with Kennedy-era political figures. Luke Skywalker was John, Han Solo was Bobby, and Lando Calrissian was Martin Luther King, Jr. He graduated from Jackson Central Mary High School in 1986. Jones received his B.S. in Communication and Political Science from the University of Tennessee at Martin. Jones worked as an intern at the Jackson Sun, the Shreveport Times and the Associated Press. He also helped to launch and spearhead a number of independent, campus-based publishing efforts. These publications included The 14th Circle, The Periscope, The New Alliance Project, and The Third Eye. Jones credits UT Martin for preparing him for life on a global stage. I left UT Martin confident that I could take on any challenge and do well at it if I studied hard and worked hard and kept my nose clean. I really do think you can get absolutely anywhere from UT Martin because of the quality of caring and individual attention. After graduating from UT Martin, Jones left his home state to attend Yale Law School. In 1993, Jones earned his Juris Doctor and moved to San Francisco. Career Earlier activism In 1992, while still a law student at Yale, Jones participated as a volunteer legal monitor for a protest of the Rodney King verdict in San Francisco. He and many other participants in the protest were arrested. The district attorney later dropped the charges against Jones. The arrested protesters, including Jones, won a small legal settlement. Jones later said that the incident deepened my disaffection with the system and accelerated my political radicalization. In October 2005, Jones said he was a rowdy nationalist before the King verdict was announced, but that by August of that year he was a communist. His activism was also spurred on by witnessing racial inequality in New Haven, Connecticut. "I was seeing kids at Yale do drugs and talk about it openly, and have nothing happen to them or, if anything, get sent to rehab. And then I was seeing kids 3 blocks away, in the housing projects, doing the same drugs, in smaller amounts, go to prison." When he graduated from law school, Jones gave up plans to take a job in Washington, D.C., and moved to San Francisco instead. He became a member of a socialist collective called Standing Together to organize a revolutionary movement that protested against police brutality. Ella Baker Center for Human Rights equals. In 1995, Jones started Bay Area Police Watch, the region's only bar-certified hotline and lawyer referral service for victims of police abuse. The hotline started receiving 15 calls a day. Police Watch began as a project of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. "We designed a computer database, the first of its kind in the country, that allows us to track problem officers, problem precincts, problem practices, so at the click of a mouse we can now identify trouble spots and troublemakers," said Jones. "This has given us a tremendous advantage in trying to understand the scope and scale of the problem. Now, obviously, just because somebody calls and says, 'Officer so-and-so did something to me,' doesn't mean it actually happened, but if you get 2, 4, 6 phone calls about the same officer, then you begin to see a pattern. It gives you a chance to try and take affirmative steps." By 1996, Jones founded a new umbrella NGO, the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, which consisted of a closet-like office and a computer that Jones had brought from his apartment. From 1996 to 1997, Jones and Police Watch led a campaign which was successful in getting Officer Mark Andreal fired from the San Francisco Police Department. Andreal was the lead officer accused of the in-custody death of Aaron Williams, an unarmed black man. In 1999 and 2000, Jones was a leader in the failed campaign to defeat Proposition 21, which escalated penalties for crimes by youth and sparked a student movement that made national headlines. In 2001, Jones and the Ella Baker Center launched the Books Not Bars campaign. From 2001 to 2003, Jones and Books Not Bars led a campaign to block the construction of a proposed super jail for youth in Oakland's Alameda County. Books Not Bars later went on to launch a statewide campaign to transform California's juvenile justice system. Color of Change equals. Following Hurricane Katrina in 2005, Jones and James Rucker co-founded a web-based grassroots organization to address black issues called Color of Change. Color of Change's mission is described on its website as follows: colorofchange.org exists to strengthen Black America's political voice. Our goal is to empower our members Black Americans and our allies to make government more responsive to the concerns of Black Americans and to bring about positive political and social change for everyone. Within 2 years of co-founding the organization, Jones moved on to other pursuits, but remains listed on the Color of Change website as former staff. Shift to environmentalism. By 2005, Jones had begun promoting eco-capitalism and environmental justice. In 2005, the Ella Baker Center expanded its vision beyond the immediate concerns of policing, declaring that if we really wanted to help our communities escape the cycle of incarceration, we had to start focusing on job, wealth and health creation. In 2005, Jones and the Ella Baker Center produced the social equity track for the United Nations World Environment Day celebration, held that year in San Francisco. It was the official beginning of what would eventually become Ella Baker Center's Green Collar Jobs campaign. The Green Collar Jobs campaign was Jones' first concerted effort to meld his desire to improve racial and economic equality with his newer desire to mitigate environmental concerns. It soon took as its mission the establishment of the nation's first Green Jobs Corps in Oakland. On October 20, 2008, the City of Oakland formally launched the Oakland Green Jobs Corps, a public-private partnership that will provide local Oakland residents with job training, support, and work experience so that they can independently pursue careers in the new energy economy. Green for All equals. In September 2007, Jones attended the Clinton Global Initiative and announced his plans to launch Green for All, a new national NGO dedicated to creating green pathways out of poverty in America. The plan grew out of the work previously done at local level at the Ella Baker Center. Green for All would take the Green Collar Jobs campaign mission creating green pathways out of poverty national. Green for All formally opened its doors on January 1, 2008. In its first year, Green for All organized the Dream Reborn, the first national green conference where the majority of attendees were people of color. It co-hosted, with One Sky and the We campaign, a national day of action for the new economy called Green Jobs Now. It launched the Green Collar Cities program to help cities build local green economies and started the Green for All Capital Access program to assist green entrepreneurs. As part of a Clean Energy Corps working group, it launched a campaign for a Clean Energy Corps initiative which would create 600,000 green-collar jobs while retrofitting and upgrading more than 15 million American buildings. In reflecting on Green for All's first year, Jones wrote, "1 year later, Green for All is real, and we have helped put green-collar jobs on the map. We have a long way to go. But today we have a strong organization to help get us there." Jones advocates a combination of conservation, regulation and investment as a way of encouraging environmental justice and opposing environmental racism. In an interview for the On Deep Democracy interview series, Jones spoke of a third wave of environmentalism. The first wave is sort of the Teddy Roosevelt, conservation era which had its day, and then, in 1963, Rachel Carson writes a book, Silent Spring, and she's talking about toxics in the environment, and that really kind of opens up a whole new wave. So it's no longer just conservation but it's conservation, plus regulation, trying to regulate the bad, and that wave kind of continued to be developed and got kind of a 2.5 upgrade because of the environmental justice community who said, wait a minute, you're regulating but you're not regulating equally. The white polluters and white environmentalists are essentially steering poison into the people of color communities, because they don't have a racial justice frame. Now there's something new that's beginning to gather momentum, and it's conservation plus regulation of the bad, plus investment in the good. Beginning to put money into the solutions as well as trying to regulate the problem. The green collar economy equals. On October 7, 2008, Harper One released Jones' first book, The Green Collar Economy. The book outlines his substantive and viable plan for solving the biggest issues facing the county, the failing economy and our devastated environment. The book has received favorable reviews from Al Gore, Nancy Pelosi, Laurie David, Paul Hawken, Winona LaDuke and Ben Jealous. In the book, Jones contended that invention and investment will take us out of a pollution-based gray economy and into a healthy new green economy. Jones wrote, "We are entering an era during which our very survival will demand invention and innovation on a scale never before seen in the history of human civilization. Only the business community has the requisite skills, experience, and capital to meet that need. On that score, neither government nor the non-profit and voluntary sectors can compete, not even remotely. So in the end, our success and survival as a species are largely and directly tied to the new eco-entrepreneurs, and the success and survival of their enterprises. Since almost all of the needed eco-technologies are likely to come from the private sector, civic leaders and voters should do all that can be done to help green business leaders succeed. That means, in large part, electing leaders who will pass bills to aid them. We cannot realistically proceed without a strong alliance between the best of the business world and everyone else." Jones had a limited publicity budget and no national media platform. But a viral, web-based marketing strategy earned the book a number 12 debut on the New York Times bestseller list. Jones and Green for All used a combination of emails and phone calls to friends, bloggers, and a network of activists to reach millions of people. The marketing campaign's grassroots nature has led to Jones calling it a victory not for him but for the entire green-collar jobs movement. Jones was featured on the grassroots radio program, Sea Change Radio, talking about the book and about creating a new, clean and green economy in a way that's inclusive. The Green-Collar Economy is the first environmental book authored by an African American to make the New York Times bestseller list. White House Council on Environmental Quality On March 10, 2009, it was announced that Jones would serve as Special Advisor for Green Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation at the White House Council on Environmental Quality. Jones, while an ardent supporter of President Barack Obama, originally did not intend to work for the White House, later explaining, "When they asked the question, I burst out laughing because at the time it seemed completely ludicrous that it would even be an option. I think what changed my mind was interacting with the administration during the transition process and during the whole process of getting the recovery package pulled together." His position with the Obama administration was described by columnist Chadwick Matlin as switchboard operator for Obama's grand vision of the American economy, connecting the phone lines between all the federal agencies invested in a green economy. Jones did not like the informal czar term sometimes applied to his job, and described his position as the green jobs handyman. "I'm there to serve. I'm there to help as a leader in the field of green jobs, which is a new field. I'm happy to come and serve and be helpful, but there's no such thing as a green job czar." Controversy and resignation. After his White House appointment, Jones began receiving criticism from media sources such as World Net Daily and Fox News commentator Glenn Beck, who featured Jones on 14 episodes of his show. They criticized Jones for his past political activities, including his involvement with Storm and his support for Mumia Abu-Jamal, a prisoner sentenced to death for murdering a police officer in a highly controversial trial. In July 2009, Color of Change, an organization that Jones founded in 2005 and left in 2007, launched a campaign urging advertisers on Beck's Fox News show to pull their ads, in response to comments by Beck stating President Obama has a deep-seated hatred for white people or the white culture. In September 2009, a video on YouTube was circulated of a February 2009 lecture at the Berkeley Energy and Resources Collaborative at which Jones used strong language to refer to congressional Republican lawmakers, and himself, when conveying that Democrats need to step up the fight. Jones was asked how Republicans could manage to pass measures through the Senate without a supermajority, yet Democrats, with 58 votes of their own, were being blocked by Republicans. Jones explained, "Well, the answer to that is, they're assholes. As a technical, political kind of term. And Barack Obama is not an asshole. Now, I will say this, I can be an asshole, and some of us who are not Barack Hussein Obama, are going to have to start getting a little bit uppity." Jones apologized, "for the offensive words I chose to use during that speech. They do not reflect the views of this administration, which has made every effort to work in a bipartisan fashion, and they do not reflect the experience I have had since I joined the administration." Several days later, Jones came under additional criticism for his name appearing on a 2004 petition from 911truth.org that suggested the Bush administration may indeed have deliberately allowed 9/11 to happen. Then Representative, now Governor Mike Pence, the chairman of the Republican Conference in the U.S. House of Representatives, and Senator John Cornyn, chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, publicly criticized Jones, while Senator Kit Bond urged Congress to investigate Jones' fitness for the position. Bob Beckel, a Fox News political analyst who was formerly an official in the Carter administration, became the first prominent Democrat to call for Jones' resignation. In response to the criticisms, Jones issued a statement that said, "In recent days some in the news media have reported on past statements I made before I joined the Obama administration, some of which were made years ago. If I have offended anyone with statements I made in the past, I apologize." Of the 9/11 petition specifically, he said, "I do not agree with this statement and it certainly does not reflect my views now or ever." After what Jones described as a vicious smear campaign by opponents of reform, of healthcare and clean energy, he resigned on September 5, saying that he could not in good conscience ask my colleagues to expend precious time and energy defending or explaining my past. "We need all hands on deck, fighting for the future." During an interview on ABC's This Week, White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs thanked Jones for his service to the country, and said that Obama doesn't endorse Jones' previous association with the 9/11 Truth movement, his comments regarding race relations and politics, and his support for Mumia Abu-Jamal. Some liberal commentators expressed continued support for Jones, singling out the efforts of Glenn Beck to force his resignation. Arianna Huffington predicted Beck's efforts would backfire by freeing Jones from being tied to his desk with a sock in his mouth. John McWhorter, in The New Republic, related his analysis to the Obama presidency in general, saying that allowing Jones to resign was spineless. In a post-resignation interview with The Washington Post, Jones said he did not have any bitterness or anger about the situation, and expressed his hope and belief that people would judge him based on his work. Later, in an op-ed about the resignation of another Obama administration official, Shirley Sherrod, Jones described the media as having rushed to judgment about him, and he denied having ever signed the 9/11 Truth petition. On July 27, 2010, the group 911truth.org released a statement that they had researched the situation and were unable to produce electronic or written evidence that Vann agreed to sign the statement. In 2009, when first questioned about it, Jones said that he hadn't fully reviewed the statement before he signed. Two other signatories of the statement, Rabbi Michael Lerner and historian Howard Zinn, told Politico's Ben Smith they felt they had signed a petition of more limited scope, one that asked only for an investigation into the attacks. Janice Matthews, director of 911truth.org, said Jones and two other signatories requested their names be removed. That has been done. Center for American Progress and Princeton . In February 2010, Jones became a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, where he leads their Green Opportunity Initiative to develop a clearly articulated agenda for expanding investment, innovation, and opportunity through clean energy and environmental restoration. At the same time, he received appointments at Princeton University, as a distinguished visiting fellow in both the Center for African American Studies and in the program in Science, Technology and Environmental Policy at the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs. Rebuild the Dream . In June 2011, Vann launched an advocacy project called Rebuild the Dream, which aimed to give the progressive mass movement that rose up to elect Barack Obama a new banner to march under. The launch included performances by The Roots and a DJ set by artist Shepard Fairey. In August of 2012, Prince announced a series of concerts in Chicago to support Rebuild the Dream. Prince went on The View with Van Jones and Rosario Dawson to promote the concerts. CNN . Crossfire. In June 2013, Vann was announced as a co-host of a reboot of the CNN political debate show Crossfire, alongside Newt Gingrich, Stephanie Cutter and S.E. Cupp. In October 2014, the show was cancelled. Commentator, Vann continued on after the end of Crossfire as a regular CNN contributor. He has contributed to segments on a wide range of topics including Obama administration policies, Supreme Court decisions, Ferguson protests, and the 2016 Republican primary. Cut 50 . In 2015, Vann launched Cut 50, an organization focused on bipartisan solutions to criminal justice reform issues. In March 2015, Cut 50 hosted a bipartisan summit with former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich to promote bipartisan solutions. In November 2015, Cut 50 gained the support of singer Alicia Keys. Yes We Code . In early 2015, Vann launched Yes We Code, an initiative aiming to teach 100,000 low-income kids to write code. Other projects . During the 2003 California gubernatorial recall election, Jones served as Arianna Huffington's statewide grassroots director. On February 26, 2010, Jones received the NAACP President's Award at the 41st Annual NAACP Image Awards. On October 2, 2010, Jones spoke at the One Nation Working Together rally in Washington, D.C., where he spoke about linking the fight against poverty with the fight against pollution, saying that green jobs would bring real solutions instead of hateful rhetoric. On April 15, 2011, Jones spoke at PowerShift 2011 in Washington, D.C., where he addressed over 10,000 students on issues of climate justice and standing up for underrepresented communities. PowerShift 2011 was the largest youth activism and organizing training in U.S. history. In 2011, Jones worked with MoveOn.org to launch the Rebuild the Dream campaign, which was intended to start a progressive American dream movement to counter the Tea Party movement. Following a kickoff on June 23, 2011, Rebuild the Dream announced a contract for the American Dream, intended as a counter to the Tea Party-supported Contract from America, and held House meetings in July. Jones claimed 127,000 people had become involved in the movement by the end of July 2011. At the beginning of October 2011, prior to a Rebuild the Dream conference in Washington, D.C., Jones compared the Occupy Wall Street movement to an American autumn comparable to the Arab Spring uprisings, saying, "You can see it right now with these young people on Wall Street. Hold on to your hats, we're going to have an October offensive to take back the American dream and to rescue America's middle class." At a speech in San Francisco in February 2012, Jones spoke out on behalf of underwater homeowners, saying they call it class warfare if anything, unregistered trademark warfare against people who have no class they want unregistered trademark to even return our phone calls when our houses are underwater CNN announced on June 26, 2013, that Jones will join a new version of Crossfire relaunching in the fall of 2013, with panelists Newt Gingrich, Stephanie Cutter, and S.E. Cupp. Boards Jones has served on the boards of numerous environmental and non-profit organizations, including One Sky, the National Apollo Alliance, Social Venture Network, Rainforest Action Network, Pioneers, Julia Butterfly Hill's Circle of Life organization and Free Press. He currently serves on the board of trustees at Demos. He also served as a senior fellow with the Center for American Progress and a fellow at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He was a keynote speaker at the youth conference PowerShift 2009 and 2011 in Washington, D.C. Awards and honors. Jones Awards and honors include, 1996 a Eurobrick Award now renamed as Dosum Thing Awards, 1997 a Euro 1999 a Euro Rockefeller Foundation Next Generation Leadership Fellowship, 1998 a Euro Reebok International Human Rights Award, 2000 a Euro International Ashoka Fellowship, 2008 a Euro Best Dressed Environmentalist. Sustainable Style Foundation, 2008 a Euro Time Magazine Environmental Hero, 2008 a Euro Elle Magazine Green Award, 2008 a Euro one of the George Lucas Foundation's Daring Dozen, 2008 a Euro Hunt Prime Mover Award. Hunt Alternatives Fund, 2008 a Euro Campaign for America's Future Paul Wellstone Award, 2008 a Euro Global Green USA Community Environmental Leadership Award, 2008 a Euro San Francisco Foundation Community Leadership Award, 2008 a Euro Puffin Nation Prize for Creative Citizenship, 2008 a Euro World Economic Forum Young Global Leader, 2008 a Euro Essence Magazine 25 Most Inspiring African Americans, 2009 a Euro Hubert H. Humphrey Civil Rights Award, 2009 a Euro Eco Entrepreneur Award, Institute for Entrepreneurship, Leadership and Innovation. Howard University, 2009 a Euro Individual Thought Leadership, Energy and Environment Awards. Aspen Institute, 2009, Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People in the World, 2010 a Euro NAACP President's Award, 2010 a Euro Commonwealth Club of California Euro and Forum's 21st Century Visionary Award, 2010 a Euro Global Exchange Human Rights Award Honorary, 2011 a Euro Ebony Magazine's Power 150, 2012 a Euro Rolling Stone Magazine 12 Leaders Who Get Things Done, 2013 a Euro The Root Magazine 100 Honorees, 2013 a Euro Ebony Magazine's Power 100. Selected publications. Books Jones, Van. Conrad, Arian. The Green Collar Economy. New York, Harper 1. ISBN 978-0-06-165075-8. Jones, Van. Rebuild the Dream. New York, Nation Books. ISBN 1-56858-714-7. Articles Jones, Van. Shirley Sherrod and Me. New York Times. See also: List of people from Tennessee, List of U.S. Executive Branch SARS, List of Yale Law School alumni, Green Collar Worker, Social Justice. References. External links: Official website, blog entries at The Huffington Post, blog entries at grist.org, Van Jones at TED, appearances on C-SPAN, Van Jones at the Internet Movie Database, Van Jones on Twitter. Works by or about Van Jones in libraries: Ella Baker Center for Human Rights in California, the Nathan Cummings Foundation, Van Jones, Speak Truth to Power Defenders, speaktruth.org, Miracles, Jones biographical keynote at the Craigslist Foundation's non-profit boot camp, Van Jones resigns citing vicious smear campaign against me. Video report by Democracy Now! Van Jones interview with Tavis Smiley at PBS, Van Jones, in Forum's 21st Century Visionary Award.